Oh, hello, yeah. Well, I guess the traditional phrase is phew, what a scorcher. Definitely onto that kind of very hot time of year. You can tell spring's coming because we get the boat race, and you can tell summer's definitely here because, well, there are calls to ban the Notting Hill Carnival, usually from people that have failed to become mayor. And yeah, we get politicians that spout nonsense, but I guess that's a hardy perennial all year round, isn't it? Or is that just a hardy perennial anyway? Anyway, leaving my lack of knowledge of horticulture aside, we did have the glories of Kemi Badenoch being interviewed on a beach about the ECHR, which we're definitely going to leave, but she was unable to give any more details about it, which I thought was quite disappointing because if I'm going to lose basically the last of my rights to any outside authorities that might want to protect me from the government, I'd like to know some more details if you don't mind. Yeah, she was also in agreement with the whole Robert Jenrick thing about individuals tackling crime as they see it, vigilante style, which I guess is easy if you're Robert Jenrick and you have probably at least two people in your security detail, as well as your inevitable camera crew that seems to follow him around everywhere. So, yeah, if I was that mob-handed, I certainly would as well, especially if it was something as nefarious as, fair dodging. Yes. Anyway, I think I missed a trick there because I think it would have been fun if somebody had deliberately beached a small dinghy behind Kemi and run up the beach, and then we would have seen probably the news story of the year where she failed to tackle somebody coming ashore on a small boat. But I guess we've already had that with the unfortunates of Rupert Lowe, who was unable to comprehend that maybe people wouldn't quite row all the way to Essex. Anyway, leaving that aside, in terms of our silly season, which we're definitely into, we had this from Tom Slater, of Spiked, obviously. Grey-haired granny activists are ruining Britain. Yes, which I thought was a bit unfair because I, in many ways, would count myself as a grey-haired activist, although I'm not a granny. I think that's a bit quite sexist. Anyway, elderly protesters arrested at Palestine Action demonstrations remind us that age and wisdom are not always go hand in hand. Yes, which the person who is paid a great deal of money from US foreign interests to spout right-wing cant is really patronising to people like me that don't do that for a living, because most of the people that were actually arrested were, well, the sort of people who are educated middle class types that basically run the country in the background for decades at a time. But I guess if you're Tom and you worked for Fred Faridi and the rest of them at Spite, that doesn't really count. Yes, anyway, he said this, older people can often get a bad rep in political debate these days, and often for things that actually reflect well on them. Wait for it, like their support for Brexit, I told you it was coming, or a preference for parties that know what a woman is. God, yeah, those are two important things, aren't they, Tom? Those grey-top Palestine Action or Extinction Rebellion activists are hardly reflective of where most retirees are at politically. Indeed, that's true. However, still, they are a useful reminder that age and wisdom do not always go hand in hand. Yes, but, certain things are often reminders about the fact that youth's whippersnappers and very, very, very dodgy American money do go hand in hand. Thanks, Tom. I know you're actually not that young. You just look 12 like most of them do. I always assume that these people that run out of various Tufton Street related think tanks look 12 because they never actually have done any real work in their lives. Yes, we are thinking of certain mustachioed types. Anyway, the other kind of vaguely new story that's bumbling around, which isn't to do with migrants, is to do with, obviously, the dreadful closure of schools. So I had to actually smile at this because hundreds of private school pupils, this is the Tory graph, by the way, left in the lurch after historic school shuts. 160-year-old institution in Oxfordshire blames Labour's VAT raid for imminent closure. Yes, except, of course, that's not the reason, is it? You're going to know how many pupils, roughly speaking, you're going to have next year if you're a 160-year-old institution, and something else has gone on where they've decided to close, because you wouldn't decide to close a school that was probably going to be just about okay in August, but that's a convenient excuse, presumably, to get the parents off their back. Once again, it's a very expensive boarding school, and that's a model that doesn't work anymore. Still, never mind that, we can sell off the land to, well, probably hopefully some overseas interests. Hooray! That'll be good, won't it? Yes. Anyway, on the back of that, we had Lord Young's boy, Lord Young, with this: the demonisation of white working class boys is the real national disgrace. Education Secretary Bridget Fearson is part of the problem, not the solution. Yes, indeed, because you can't have left-wingers in charge of the education department. They're always wrong, same as I am, always wrong as a teacher. But that got me once again thinking about, white working class underachievement, which, as far as I can make out, using my basic GCSE sociology knowledge, which might be handy if Toby took, has been going on since about 1850. The white working class have traditionally underperformed. In particular, boys have traditionally underperformed. It's something that people noticed about 40 odd years ago. Still, never mind, we can at least milk this story, not that it's a story for all that it's worth. Toby lays down a number of things that might be done, which are sort of completely changing society in its totality, and as far as I can make out, getting rid of single parent mothers, which means presumably reforming the divorce laws or something. I don't know. Anyway, you can read it for yourself. It's very, very light on anything, a bit like Kemi Badenoch, that we might call detail. He does suggest that various schools might think about actually giving out bursaries more to white working class kids, which they effectively do. But when that was suggested to a number of them, they turned it down because it's debatable whether or not you actually can do that. Because, drum roll, writing in the Daily Telegraph, you might recall that whenever things like that are done, the Daily Telegraph jumps up and down saying about how unfair it is to the poor middle class kids whose parents are only hedge fund managers that barely were able to get their fifth skiing trip in this year. So that's probably the reason, Toby. However, the final one, I think, is a masterclass in managing to say nothing at all whilst slagging off people that actually do the work. So perhaps the answer is to de-wokeify our schools and, to paraphrase Martin Luther King, judge all children by the content of their character rather than their colour of the skin or the nature of their genitalia. Yeah, you can see what he's done there, can't you? Looking at the data, it's hard not to conclude that white working class boys are victims of the racial and sexual politics that have infected our entire education sector. It's capture by radical, progressive ideologies, the real national disgrace, but don't expect this government to do anything about that. Yes, indeed, because you may remember that, under the last administration, the Conservatives, it was absolutely brilliant in education, and under Blair it was really, really bad, and under Thatcher it was really, really brilliant, or something. Anyway, I don't know with that. I mean, you think about it, okay? What basically I think Toby is suggesting is that I teach in a different way. Not really entirely sure. I've got at least two bona fide white working class kids that I'll be teaching in September. I don't know what Toby wants me to do differently. Tend to teach to the national curriculum utilising whatever framework the government has set out for me this year. So I'm not really quite sure, Toby. I think what Toby is complaining about is the mere fact that I exist. What Toby wants is everyone to be an unqualified teacher, work for nothing, at least a minimum of about 80 hours a week, ideally, so they, after 3 years develop mental health problems and have to drop out, because we can always just get some more. And the most important of all is to not hold any left-wing opinions at all, because they might just seep out casually in that, lesson in maths on algebraic vectors. Yeah, the way that they do. I'm sure you can recall your time at school, the way that they'd be talking about, that we can use, just simple logic to work out exactly what's going on vis-a-vis our triangles, and then suddenly, before you know it, you're questioning your entire gender identity, all because of the wokest teacher. Yeah, good job that didn't happen in the 80s, except, of course, in the 80s, people were complaining about teachers making kids gay. Yeah. Plus ça la change, as the Germans would say. Anyway, do have a glorious, Wednesday, yeah. Enjoy the last of the heat before, the next one, I suppose, yeah. Enjoy.